So I've started wiring up the Jazzmaster. I've got a super switch that I've already done all the point-to-point wiring on, and so this has 5 different settings. And with this wiring setup, I get the neck by itself, the bridge by itself, and then 3 different options of phase settings. The problem is phasing requires that I reverse the start and end of the windings on this pickup. The problem, because of that, it makes this shielded braid wire become my hot wire, and this is grounded to this plate, and this plate should be grounded to this cover, and that'll create the best hum cancellation, because it'll create a Faraday cage around this pickup. When I'm on one of these middle settings, when I reverse the coil, it'll make this hot and it'll make the case hot, which could make the entire plate hot, because I'm running the ground of everything else. I'm putting this copper plate as ground through contact between these components. I don't want that to happen with this pickup, because all of the electromagnetic interference is going to hit this plate and be transmitted out of this thing. So what I think I'm going to do is use some heat shrink wrap, cover all of the plate that I can. This plate will be hot. I just don't want any of this wire to touch the outer cover. So the only other issue I have is these mounting screws have a chance to touch the outer cover, or have a chance to touch this plate, and in turn also the outer cover, because that's what they're touching, and it'll short everything out. Because I'm going to try to ground this to everything else separately. But I've got some heat shrink tubing that's the same diameter as the mounting screws, and it fits right in there. So you see, that's got continuity with my the ground, the outside shield. Just by itself, the cover doesn't seem to have any continuity at all with the magnets, with anything. But if I stick one of these screws in there, it's going to touch the top of this and this. And if I use that shrink tubing, I don't get any continuity between this and this. And so I think that's going to work. I'll be able to use this as a shield and just run a separate ground over here to where all the other grounds are going to meet on top of this capacitor. And then I'll shrink tube this. It's only got to travel this far because the switch is right here. That way I won't have to take away any of the structural integrity of it. I like that this is bolted on. And it really shouldn't matter. If anything, it'll give, when this is not treated as ground, when the outside's treated as hot and this is treated as hot, the shield and this will give a little extra resistance. And so it might give you a little more output, which is good, because in phasing issues you lose output. And so you kind of want that if you're going to do phasing, like Stratocaster sound. You want to have a little more output. So let me see what I can do. I think this is going to work. Okay. So I've got the Jazzmaster hanging up. It's ready to get clear coated. And actually today I sanded back and put a layer of stain on this guy. I'm going to go ahead and clear coat this today too. So I'm about to put a few layers on the Jazzmaster. It stormed today, but the weather radar says it's only 60% humidity, which is fine because I water it down I dilute it so much with lacquer thinner. But let's put a layer on here and I'll bring it out in the sun so you can really see the grain on this area right here. It's crazy how quilting and curling it is. It's so hard to see, everything's so backlit. I'm waiting for it to dry so I can take it out in the driveway. Take a look at it. Looks awesome. Really surprised the humidity's not acting up, because it's, man, this thing, it's hard to see. Just a real dead spot in the garage, I guess. This guitar is so comfortable. I've been sitting with it just to make sure the neck profile's right, and it's really comfortable. So is it Stratocaster. I'm really excited to get that Strat up here. I think that's what I'm gonna do next, because this has got enough clear on it. So let me put the Strat up. So I've sprayed a layer of clear on the Strat, and I've got the Jazzmaster in my hands. Let's go outside in the sun. Let's see. Oh yeah. Look at that blue. There is so much blue in the front, and there's like red in the back. This thing is stunning. I'll get some much better photos and video once it's dried and I can, feel comfortable setting it down. It looks awesome. So I've started doing all the grounds. This is the bridge pickup. So I've got the pickup grounded to the case, which runs to this outer shield. So bridge pickup's done and ready. The neck pickup shielded the shield, and I ran a secondary ground from the casing. Then I wrapped the pickup in electric tape just to make sure the pickup itself never touches the case, but the case is also grounded. This is going to act as my ground for the bridge, ground for the strings. This is the tremolo, so it's like a tailpiece. And I've got the ground inside. There's a component inside of here that you can kind of see. I've got the ground inside of, and it comes through. So now I'm going to wire up these points, and then I'm going to wire up my caps. And I've decided I'm going to use shielded wire for the output too. So I'll wire that all up separately, and then I'll bring the guitar in here, set this pick guard on top of the guitar, put a towel underneath it, and start running. This ground wire's got to go through some, well, this doesn't have to go through a cavity, but this one definitely has to go through the cavity. I've got a hole cut out. Same with the jack. It's got to go through a cavity. So let me get to this. This should be fine. I'm just always worried that I'm going to do something wrong and I won't be able to remove all of these cleanly, but I think I'm pretty good. So let's get to it. Alright, so now I've got my control rig wired up, orange drop cap. This is a 223, so it's the same kind of cap that Fender uses. Here's my ground line. Here's the hot that's coming out of the switch. And if you wrap the grounds in the hot like this, it limits a lot of the hum. You should wrap them a lot tighter than this. This looks pretty bad, but it'll still accomplish the same effect. All I need to do now is my out, and so a portion of this is going to go to ground. The other portion is going to tack on here to my middle lug, and then that'll go out to the jack. And then all that's left is, plugging in these pickups and the other ground, from the tremolo. So it looks like this thing's going to be done in just a couple of minutes, and I'll be able to throw some strings on it and hope that all of these electronic connections work out. This thing is kind of a nightmare. Let's see if I can get it to focus a little bit better. These wires are all in such close proximity to each other, but I think it's pretty good. If they look nice, and they're all, nothing's touching, so we shall see. Well, we're getting closer. This thing's a mess. I've got everything in except for this pickup, and I think I'm gonna run a wire. I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but everything else is in. The jack's in. Looks good. I just need to make sure these holes for the P90s are You know, the P90s, I hate P90s. These are how you mount them, and they're these tiny little screws that are so long, and you have to get this whole screw into the wood, and you end up stripping these heads out, and it's just a nightmare. So you really have to make sure the holes for a P90 are, you know, you have serious pilot holes drilled. And then I'll put some foam in here. You can use springs, and I used to use springs to suspend P90s, but I found that this foam really works well. And it's an extra layer of protection between the grounds. You know, it makes sure everything has like a solid foundation so it doesn't ground out. But everything seems to be working. I've been double checking with my multimeter, and I'm real excited to get this thing done. So let me wire this guy up and then screw in the P90s, and then I can put strings on it and see how straight the neck is. I'll pull the strings back off and, you know, crown the frets and everything, but I need to flatten them. And I'd really like to put some strings on this first to make sure that those P90s don't hum real bad, or you know, there's not grounding issues with the sound. And then I'll start working on the other stuff. So it's all wired up. All of the channels work. At least the multimeter says they do. Volumes work. All the pickups work. I've, you know, bolted everything in, and I've started to build the nut. I'm not going to finish this tonight. I just wanted to get the strings on it. This was really worrying me, that the angle from the tremolo to the bridge wasn't high enough, and you'd get some weird sounds. But that doesn't seem to be the case. I still need to dress the frets and do all of that stuff, but I like to get the nut done so that I can get the neck into a relief that I like, and then I can dress the frets and, you know, put the strings back on. Oh, I'm exhausted. This has been all day. It looks awesome. I haven't really picked it up to play it yet because the strings are still so high off the fretboard. But I'm about to tune it up and just see what it feels like.